All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you!
This is my boomstick!
What's your favorite scary movie?
What up, horrorheads, and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Daniel DeBona.
And I'm David Ulloa.
And if you're tuning in this week to catch us do a review of Tale of Two Sisters, we're very sorry. Turns out that movie's not streaming anywhere or downloadable anywhere. And Dave and I being 800 miles apart makes it tough for us to share the DVD. So we had to call an audible yesterday morning at about 11 o'clock. And this week we are going to be doing an early Ty West film. You can go back through our archives if you want to see us, if you want to hear us do X. But today we're going to be doing The Innkeepers. The Innkeepers is from 2011. It's from kind of like smack dab in the middle of Ty West's career, from going through and looking at all of his accomplishments so far. So we're just going to kind of jump right into this thing. It is a ghost movie as we continue the Year of the Monster. And in a section that we're calling Special Room Rates, Dave, take us through your initial thoughts of The Innkeepers.
This was strange for me because I went into this expecting I can't say I was expecting something on the level of X. X is right. Ty West at, his peak, and interestingly, I think directors only get better with age. I think it's very rare that you see that a director towards the end of his career is not as good as he was in the beginning.
Right.
Odd, and maybe it's just because art doesn't have an age limit. So I was expecting Ty West, but not Ty West at X level. Boy, was I disappointed.
Yeah.
And I remember reading about The Innkeepers when we were doing X, and I was like, well, fuck, I gotta go back and watch The Innkeepers because like its Rotten Tomato score is great, the audience score is great. And I'm like, all right, so there's something here. When those two things meet, it's very rare.
Yes.
So when it does happen, it's like, all right, there's some magic here. I remember being about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes into the movie and thinking, man, this is pretty cool. It's like Office Space meets Poltergeist.
Yes.
And about 20 minutes in, I looked over to the guy next to me. I was watching it with Ralph, longtime, fan and co-host of our show. And I said, dude, fucking nothing has happened.
Correct.
Nothing. And he reminded me of Roger Corman's rule, which is every 10 minutes, something needs to happen. And it had been 20 minutes. And fucking nothing had happened. Nothing. So when at minute 51, there's finally something that happens, that's when I texted you.
Yes.
And I said, bro, minute 51, this thing gets started. And I was ready for balls to the wall. I was like, this thing is going to be fantastic from this point out. And then all of this world building, this character building, it's going to be worth it. I know it's going to be worth it. And I was let down.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's a concept out there that I'm sure a lot of our listeners are at least familiar with or have heard of. And it's called tantric sex, right? And it's this idea that everything you do is building towards the perfect orgasm, right? And everything, you have to find pleasure in every little moment of everything that's going on, because everything in your life is building towards this one moment when you're finally gonna come, right? So this movie is whatever the fucking opposite of that is. This goddamn movie, I was so upset. I literally, so I'm watching this with my roommate and it ends and I just dropped my notebook on the coffee table and I was like, I am physically upset at this movie. I don't get it. I don't get how this has got an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. But then again, there are plenty of times where I don't get where it's got like a 40%, right? So fuck me.
Right.
What do I know? But I don't understand. This movie, I kept waiting. Now, I can be a very patient man, and I will not make that decision until the credits roll. One of my favorite horror movies is Audition, and Audition is a whole lot of nothing, but then you get the amazing moments at the end, and you realize that all of the buildup was worth it. We've talked about movies that have blueballed us before because the buildup's been great and the finish was not there, or it just didn't happen. This movie is the equivalent of getting your first hand job from a virgin in high school and she's just mashing it and nothing is accomplished. Nobody enjoyed it. You know, nobody's better for the experience afterwards. It was just, it was a waste of time. And
That's the best way to describe this.
I like Ty West. Amazing. Pearl is amazing. House of the Devil, which came out before this, so I can't even be like, oh, it was like his first foray into doing ghost movies. No, House of the Devil is good. This movie comes across like Ty West had heard like a 5-minute ghost story about a woman that haunted a hotel because she hanged herself there and was like, well, I can shoot the shit out of a movie. I bet I can turn that into 101 minutes. And that's what he did. He took a minuscule idea, but then didn't expand on it. He didn't make it anything bigger. He didn't make it anything better. This movie just, I was the same as you. I got to that 51st minute after getting your text. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. That ghost looks dope. All right, let's go. Like now the wheels are turning, right? Okay, we set all this up. We're ready now. Clocked it. It's another 20 minutes before anything else happens. So it's 70 minutes into this movie, 71 minutes into this movie, two things have happened. Two things were of note have happened. And so then at minute 71, I'm like, okay, all right, but you know, there's still 20 minutes left. We could still finish strong and we can salvage this. And we got the most piss anti little bottle rocket climax ever.
Yeah.
I was so frustrated, especially because watching this movie is gorgeous. God damn, can Ty West shoot the shit out of a movie.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. The score is amazing. It almost feels
the score is very good.
It almost feels Ghostbustery,
Yeah.
right? And you've got this great score. You've got these amazing shots. You've got the cool little like Ty West Dutch angles happening all the time, right?
He used it a lot, and it definitely helps like set the tone and set the mood. And the thing is shot on film.
Yes,
and you can always tell when something's shot on film. It's like, oh, that looks nice. Why?
Yeah.
I don't know,
but yeah. And so you're watching, and you're like, you want so bad for it to be good. I kept waiting, and I kept being like, man, I can't. I kept trying to like formulate kind of my bits in my head as I'm going, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna talk about how like this part was boring, but when this next part is exciting, like I'm gonna be like, but it was a perfect lead up to that. But tomorrow never came. You were always on the edge of tomorrow. It never happened. And I just, when it was over, like I said, I ended up doing something that I try to almost never do. And I go online and I'm like, all right, let me try to find out how this thing has got an 80%. And my roommate and I both tracked down this Reddit thread of people talking about it. And the Reddit thread, it was like a post being like, oh, I watched the Innkeepers and it was great. And then it was like 100, did we watch the same fucking movie comments? And then the next, it was just that, like on repeat. And I was like, okay, so somehow these 18 guys that enjoyed the movie infiltrated Rotten Tomatoes and kept the rest of us out. Because I don't get it. I don't know what the appeal was in this. There's like two kind of jump scares. There's, like I said, they tried to toss a little payoff at the end, but then right as it's like, okay, like, yes, like, let's do something that made this worth watching, cut to black, and it's the next day, and
Yeah.
I was mad. I was actually upset. I was upset with Ty West. I was upset with all of the actors in this. I was upset with myself because I'd like convinced my roommate to watch this with me. I was like, yeah, it's a fucking Ty West film. Come on, man. Like, I was mad. when
I
this
was
movie
upset with
over.
myself too, because when we found out that we couldn't watch A Tale of Two Sisters, like we threw out a couple of options, and I threw out The Woman in Black,
Right.
which I remember really enjoying. I haven't seen it since it was in theaters, so I might be wrong. I don't know. We won't know tonight either. But I remember thinking like, shit, man, neither of us has seen this movie. They both are contemporary films. Let's go with the one we haven't seen. And
Right.
it's fucking Ty West. How bad could it be? Boy, was I fucking wrong.
Yeah. And I feel right now, you made the mention off camera before we got started here. I feel right now how this is what I assume you felt like when American Nightmare was over, right? Where, like,
Yes.
objectively, this is not a terrible movie. It's not awful. It's not going to show up on Mystery Science Theater, but it's not a good horror movie. It's
No.
just it's 101 minutes of film, like
That it is. I made I made the illusion before we started recording that or no, it was after we'd started recording. This is Office Space Poltergeist Edition. And by all accounts, that seems like it would be something I would enjoy.
right.
But I almost feel like, and we are getting into story here, right? So in a section, we're calling The Haunting in Connecticut, kind of. I almost feel like what I thought the purpose of this was in the first hour, or rather, I should say 50 minutes, because 51 is when things start to spice up for just a moment. I thought the purpose of this was ghost hunting is always this. It's always a bunch of people sitting around hoping they find something and they never do.
Right.
And like I've seen a lot of was it Paranormal State? That was one of the big shows on like A&E back in the day. I watched a lot of Paranormal State. I've seen a lot of ghost hunters. They never capture anything.
They never do.
Never. And it's always that buildup of, well, there's this thing and there's this other thing, and here's the history, and here's this, and here's that. And then in the end, it always leaves you with your dick in your hand. And like, you're not even hard anymore. You're just like, why am I holding this thing? But you were along for the ride.
Right.
When the ghost turns out to be real. For me, that was the moment that I was like, what the fuck is the point of this movie?
Yes.
Because if all of this was an exercise in futility, and it really was Office Space, Ghost Edition, fuck, man. It's funny.
Right.
I think it's well written. I really like these characters. I am a little like creeped out. I'm so sorry. We got a cat recently.
Gatito.
Yeah. We got a cat recently, and he knows no boundaries, none at all. So I was like, fuck, man, like the writing's good. Acting is good. A little creeped out by like the age difference between these two and the fact that there seems to be a little bit of romantic tension between them.
Yes.
But it does seem to be one-sided, so that's, probably true to life. I was on board. And then you see a spectacular looking ghost.
Yeah.
She is really frightening looking. And I was lost. I was like, okay, this is great. Now it's going to be, and it wasn't. It wasn't that, and it wasn't the first thing. It was some weird mishmash. For me, and I'm going to throw it to you now so that you can comment on the story. I was confused by the ending. Why does she die?
I don't know. I don't know why she died. That's the thing. That's one of the main places where this movie lost me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it seems like it seems like the creation of this film, comes from just like seeing the idea almost from an episode of like Ghost Hunters, right? Where it's like, oh yes, this woman haunts this hotel because she hanged herself there or whatever. But it seems like, and that's a fine place to start. I'm sure there are plenty of great movies that have started with less than that, right? The problem comes in with, we then get no other world building on that ghost side of things. We get the idea that this woman who used to be a television star is a healer and a medium. We get that they communicate through her at one point. You're not supposed to go in the basement and da 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 da. And there's 3 of them. And there's this really sad story about this old man who had his honeymoon here and just needed one more night there, where it was obvious he was going to kill himself. But
from the beginning,
yeah, it was like
paying cash.
Yeah, it's like you heard that dude's voice. I was like, this guy's suicidal. So you get all of this. We never find out why they had it in for Sarah Paxton in particular. We don't know why it was Claire that they were specifically after. And we know that it was Claire they were specifically after because to draw her into the basement in order to murder her, they're calling her by name. We don't know, so we have the idea that I guess this is, anybody who commits suicide in this hotel is stuck there forever, because we do get the ghost of the old man, but we don't get any explanation as to why they have any sort of connection to her. We don't get why they're not just have a connection to her, but that they're out for her specifically.
Right.
And why they would kill her in however.
And there's another ghost that we never see.
Right. And for however many years that this woman has been haunting the peddler, she's never killed anybody. She's, and these other ghosts, no one's even ever heard of them, but suddenly they're on a murder rage just because she wasn't supposed to go in the basement and went, except for she'd been there already and went out, and they're the ones who drew her back in. All of these pieces don't connect. This is where we did the Fog last week, and we talked about how the Fog was such a great example of how you turn a campfire story into a good ghost movie. This is how you take a bad campfire story told by that kid who always goes, oh wait, and I forgot to tell you. And you thought, but like when that kid tells a story, this is what happens when that kid is then allowed to put that story to film. By the end of it, when you're waiting for the moment, you're waiting for it all to happen and be incredible, it gets even more fragmented. Like you were saying, for those first 51 minutes, yes, was I a little bit bored? Yes. But did I have faith that it was going to pay off? Did I believe that these pieces were going to fall into place because they were connecting? They were pieces that were going together and they made sense. They were starting to build a picture. By the time Pat Healy freaks out, I've forgotten everybody's Luke. By the time Luke freaks out and he's like, I never saw her and this is awful, and we're hearing all these voices. By the time that happens, the pieces that we get from that point forward seem to be from a completely different puzzle. And at that point, we're 95 minutes into a movie that is only 101 minutes long. And it jumps the shark, it jumps ship, whatever, fucking analogy you want to use. It's like they were doing it and it was like, oh, well, we need something to happen. And none of that makes sense towards the end. And it was, I don't know. I don't know. It was confusing at best.
That is, that mirrors my thoughts exactly. I think that I don't think I know, because Ty West has said so, that the idea for this movie came out of making his previous movie, and they stayed at the Yankee Peddler. And a couple of the people on the crew experienced some weird things. They, the people that worked at the hotel said, yeah, it's supposed to be haunted.
Right.
And so they came back and they made this movie. I hate to be that guy, but immediately I was turned off the moment I saw Lena Dunham.
Look, you're not wrong. I too hate to be that guy, but man, come on.
There's something about her that just gives me the ick, and I'm like, no fucking thank you. And this is pre-cringe Lena Dunham,
right? Like pre-girls and
right. This is right around the time that she's getting girls up and running, and by all accounts, Girls was a hit. It was a success, and she did not turn into the Lena Dunham that we all know and hate until after.
Right.
But that kind of set a tone for me. And that aside, I just wanted to mention that. That aside, the fact that the story is so incoherent, because being boring is the worst thing a movie can be.
Correct.
But if you're boring and confusing, I think it's worser. Right? Like if you can go negative, if it's possible to go negative, it's boring and confusing. When
that's that bottom left section of the quadrant.
Yes. When Kelly McGinnis says that there's 3 ghosts here, at that moment, there's only 1 ghost we know about.
Right.
We don't see a second ghost until after she says there's 3 ghosts. Now, here's the thing. She seems to be able to see into the future.
Yeah, she said she has like deja vu, but it can happen from like any place and time or whatever. Again, very weird explanation, but I was kind of here for that. I was like,
Right.
Okay, yeah, give me a different view on what it means to be a medium and to be able to see through the veil. I kind of, that was a section that I kind of dug.
I was on board for that.
Yeah.
Either, if I'm to accept this, she is an accomplice to murder.
Right.
Ghost murder. And the 3 ghosts she saw were, the bride, can't remember her name, and I don't fucking care to look it up. The old man,
Madeline O'Malley was the bride, and the old man is actually credited as just the old man.
The old man, okay. I was gonna call him Riz McSlitty, but that seemed not okay. So,
how very insensitive of us.
Very. I don't fucking care though. This would be wasted my time.
Yeah.
Presumably, she would be the 3rd ghost because she died on the grounds.
Right.
So that would make her an accomplice to this fucking murder. Like, you didn't try to stop it. You didn't tell her, like, hey, don't go. When I tell my son, who will be 2 tomorrow, not to do something, do you know what he does? I know you know.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of these things.
I do.
Right? They do exactly the same thing you tell them not to do. All right. How old is she in this? 19, 20, right? You tell her not to go down there. What's the first fucking thing she's going to do? Either Kelly McGinnis is like legitimately low IQ, or her character, not Kelly McGinnis. Or she is accomplice to murder.
Yeah.
And either one of those things, I don't fucking care for. All right. I don't care that this movie is representative of your experience at a hotel. All right. I could sit here and recount for you many, many stories that I have had in my life. But if there's not a fucking point to that story, why am I telling you? All right. I feel like my time was robbed.
Yeah.
And I'm legitimately angry about that. I'm legitimately angry about that. I realize I chose to watch this movie. Right? And I have no one but myself to be angry with. But what the fuck? Because I didn't pay for this thing because I already got Amazon Prime. All right. I already got Shudder. I'm already paying up the fucking ass for all these subscription services. So I didn't pay anything extra to see this thing. But you know what I could have been doing? with this hour and what was it, 47 minutes or something like that. All right. I could have been doing like literally fucking anything.
Yeah.
Literally anything. I'm a couple of episodes behind on X-Men 97. I could have been watching that. All right. I could have been polishing silver. I could have been jerking off. I don't care what it is that I could have been doing, but I could have been doing that instead of watching this movie. Fuck, I could have watched Commando.
Yeah, exactly. I was there were a couple scenes in the movie that were worthwhile, and the tension built, but they got closer to that blue ball analogy that we've made before. The scene where she's tracking the ghost with the microphone and she hears the piano and it's only in her headphones. It's like, okay, all right, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you get the moment where like the phantom fingers or whatever actually play like a chord on the piano. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. Like, but like I said, it was that thing where every time you felt like it was gearing up, then it just went back to like, okay, let's sit around at the desk now, and that was it. And I was just I was so bothered by the fact that it just not only did it bore me, but it felt so lazy. I think is one when it was all said and done, I think that's what upset me the most is you're right. If this had been Office Space and it was about the futility of ghost hunting and it was, it wasn't going to save this hotel and it was a waste of her time and Luke's time, and if it had been about that, and then I could have allowed the humor to be like, okay, well then it makes sense because it was really just about how kind of stupid this can all be. But the thing is, when you're right, when a ghost actually appears, and so you find out that they're ghost hunting in a place that's actually haunted, so it's no longer about the futility of it, then all of the boring scenes and the scenes where nothing's happening except for maybe a couple jokes, all of those scenes, that's when they start to feel like they wasted your time. It's like if you were going to put a ghost, 2 ghosts, 3 ghosts into this hotel, then why didn't I get more of them? And I like I said, I cannot for the life of me. I've tried to read some people's defenses of this movie. I've tried to read some people. Yeah, I approach the internet with the rare mindset that you approach the internet of, which is okay, change my mind.
Right.
I went headlong into reading reviews of this, and I'll tell you the one thing that seems to be the same about everybody who defends this movie is these guys are all in a competition to see who can get their head the farthest up their own ass.
Yeah.
This is one of those movies that the reason, and I, I'm not standing on this as fact. I'm just telling you what I believe. The reason this is an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes is this is the type of movie where people are afraid to say that they don't like it. This is the Barbarian effect, and like so
I was going to say this is the Barbarian effect. This is the horror movie for people who don't like horror movies,
right?
And that's weird to say coming from a Ty West movie, because like by all accounts he's a great horror filmmaker, but this is a shit horror movie.
Yeah, and this is the type of movie where if you think, there are plenty of movies that horror fans love that other people watch and they're like, I don't get it. This is a movie that's approachable as a non-horror fan that you watch and you don't get scared, and then you go, if you're not a horror fan, you watch this and go, oh, this must be one of those movies that like the nerds latch onto. I bet if I say I like this one, that gives me cred. I bet if I find something deep within the Innkeepers, then that's foot in the door with the horror heads, with the people who really like this stuff, because this movie is approachable for me. But it also, because of the fact that it's shot on film, that it's Ty West, that it's pretty, that the score is amazing, there's enough like high IQ film things to hang your hat on to claim that this is a good movie. That's got to be what it is. It's got to be people who aren't horror fans who are just looking for all of those things that, win random movies Oscars. When you watch the Oscars, it's always like, and for sound mixing, and it's like 5 movies you've never heard of, and then Ferrari, right? And you're like, okay, well, it's got to be the one where they were just assaulting me with auto noises the whole time, and then it's like this French film, and it's just some skinny guy with like a goatee walks up and just drunkenly spews a bunch of shit into the microphone and stumbles off. That's what this movie
that is very accurate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is. There's all of these things that a film buff looks for, that this movie does check those boxes.
Yeah,
it does check, that there's great set pieces. It does check that the score is incredible. There's some great shots. It's pretty. There's some really weird and cool camera stuff as it goes. The scene where she's sitting there in the laundry room and we go from like steady cam and it like comes over her shoulder, and then suddenly we've got like this weird shaky cam thing happening as it kind of moves through the laundry room a little bit. It's intriguing.
Yeah.
But it's sound and fury that equates to nothing.
Yeah.
It's ultimately trying to rage against the dying of the light and accomplishes nothing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what bothered me is it came across as a lazy entry into the horror genre instead of just being a film that could have been something. It could have been about the futility of ghost hunting. It could have been about this woman who found a second calling when acting didn't work out for her, and it wasn't going to go anywhere, but she was okay with that she was at peace with where her life was now because she felt like she was making far more of a difference in the world than when she was an actress.
Mm-hmm.
The could have beens for this movie are mountains above what this movie actually is, and that's where it hits the hardest. I've watched movies that have been a waste of time before and not been upset, just been like, well, won't have that 90 minutes back. This one pissed me off.
And we always talk about how our philosophy is that you judge movies or you watch movies for what they are and not for what they aren't. My problem here, and I may one day go back on these words, but I'm not keeping track of them, and we don't have a stenographer here. What it is shit. What it is and shit is shit, yeah. And what it could have been is at least better than shit.
Yeah,
and so I feel robbed.
Well, and in that same vein, we also kind of judge a movie, because how many times have we watched a movie and been like, it's suffering from an identity crisis?
Mm-hmm.
This movie's not suffering from an identity crisis. That's the thing. It knows exactly what it wants to be. It just fails at being that. So I don't think that we're necessarily judging this movie for what it isn't. We're judging it for the fact that it put its size 4 foot into a size 9 shoe. And
got upset that it tripped.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like you presented yourself as someone with a size 9 foot. And I've now pulled it out and seen that that's not what it is. So we're not judging it for what it's not. We are judging it for what it claims to and wants to be. It just didn't accomplish that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess we have mentioned that the score and the film, the shooting itself are pretty. But I guess if we had to try to find something to drag out of this, something that made sense, something that gave us a reason to stop shitting for just a few minutes all over this movie. Because Ty West, if you ever run across this, go back and listen to our X episode, because we killed it. We love that movie. This one was just a miss. But if there's something that we had to kind of be like, okay, here's a little bit of light, it's going to be the characters. So in a section that we're calling the Yankee Peddlers, I mean, we've only got really 3 people to choose from here, so let's get into them.
All right. So I do want to say that one of the good things about this movie is that the dialogue is really well written. I think the story is not good, but the dialogue is spectacular. And really it comes down to just a handful of people, because there's only a handful of people in this. But for me, I want to say Pat Healy
Yeah.
just fucking steals every scene that he's in. And I realize that he is not the lead. He is the male lead, but he's not the lead in this, because Sarah Paxton really does like shoulder the burden of this movie. And she shoulders it well. The acting is not one of the issues in this movie. But he just was one of those where, like, every time he was on screen, it was a joy to see him on screen. He chewed up scenery in just the right amount of way, because his like blasé sort of like it was Randall from Clerks,
Yes.
but in a world where ghosts existed, where he didn't have an opportunity so much to talk about Star Wars, and more was like, man, I really can't wait for my website to take off. Like it was great. The fact that he was a hack and that he was lying about the whole thing made it so much more real. I was hoping then that the ghost that we had seen was in fact a dream, and that this whole thing was going to end up being an exercise in futility, where he was like, listen, man, this whole thing's made up, and I was just
Right.
trying to get into your pants. And so, like, maybe, like if that's where this thing had gone, I would have been on board. Still a little creepy because the age difference is, significant, but still, I feel like I could have been on board with that kind of movie. Regardless of where the movie went, he went to incredible places with this thing. And the scene where they are in the basement and she's talking about how the ghost is getting closer, she's just behind him. You can see in his face, like, he is a legitimate actor. I think everyone in this movie is a legitimate actor. And that is something that I think Ty West does really well. Is he is an actor's director, and he's able to direct people, and he's able, because it can't be that like he just happens to like get lucky every time,
Right.
like after a while you're just like, no man, that guy can direct his actors. And I think that that's what he did here, and it's the thing he did best here. And for me, if I had to choose just that one person, it would be Pat Healy.
Yeah, Pat Healy was incredible in this. And what one thing that's funny about Pat Healy is whenever he's talking off screen, I see Steve Buscemi in my head. There's something about his voice that's very Steve Buscemi to me, but I do love Pat Healy, and you're right. I think that he did a great job. I think that he was really funny when he was supposed to be funny. Just that burned out guy who's just kind of over all this shit. And yeah, he gets drunk and he's talking about how cool this chick is, and we vibe and all of this. But most of the time he's just this dude who's at a job he hates that's about to tank anyway. And he's just, he's just along for the ride. He never remembers to wash the towels. He never got around to the towels. He's got this website that's not really going anywhere, but he did a great job with everything that he did. But yes, that scene in the basement where she's just like, he's just sitting there and he's just pouring sweat, and he's just terrified of whatever's going on. And in that moment, everybody watching knew before he told us and before he freaked out that he had never actually had an experience, because in that scene, he gave us all of that. So he was amazing. I was living for the times that he was on screen. Sarah Paxton, I think that she did the most with the role, the script, and the character that she was given. I think that she delivered everything really well. I think that she played scared very well. I thought that it was interesting. I didn't even realize it was Sarah Paxton at first because she was so plain Jane girl from a small town. Right. And it was like it was when I realized where I was like, I'm sitting there watching and I hadn't noticed the name in the credits for anything. So I'm sitting there watching. I was like, I know this girl from somewhere. I'm trying to think and I'm going through it and I was like, oh my God, it's the girl from Return to Halloween Town. Like,
Yeah.
and then that's like when it clicked and I was like, okay, now it's coming together. Then I, start to think of the other stuff she's been in, like superhero movie and stuff like that. And you start to put all that other stuff together. But I think that she did a good job with it as this kind of starry-eyed kid who was still trying to find her place in the world. She wasn't going to let this guy that was burned out on everything drag her down. And she was still, cheery enough about everything that she was going to try to pull him up with her. But we got that moment where she runs into Kelly McGinnis and, like mother, like son meant so much to me as a kid. And she wanted to, she fangirled on her and did all that. She always felt very relatable and approachable. And so I really did appreciate that. The scene, like I was saying, where she's hearing the piano music, I think that she kind of went about that the way that any normal person who might be having a paranormal experience like this would have gone about it, which is explore until the moment you're scared and then find somebody. You go find someone. You've got to tell them you don't want to be alone. This is too much. Like now that you've seen the piano play, bridge too far, and she moves on. I think that every bit of her performance was very realistic to somebody who was just kind of mildly, into this idea of ghost hunting. And so I did really enjoy her in this.
I think that I think the camera loves her.
Yeah.
And I know that that's kind of a strange saying, but she has this kind of like doe-eyed deer look to her. Very, very innocent, very much like in the moment. And for this character, that's exactly what you need. And she played that amazingly well. With any other actress, I don't know that the movie didn't work, but I don't know that the character would have worked, because at the very least the character does work. And I do believe that she is actively trying to help Pat Healy out and get some sort of good footage or good audio for his website. I really do believe that like she is, kind of just floating around trying to figure herself out, and she doesn't know what she's going to do, and she's okay with that. And at that moment that she has with Kelly McGillis where she tells her like you made me feel bad, and like I don't know what I'm doing right now, but I know that I just got some audio of a ghost and I'm proud of that, or whatever it is that she says. Like, that's a great moment. And you can tell that like it took a lot out of her to do that. So, like her performance, I think, is very genuine. And I don't for a minute think that Claire and her have anything in common.
Right.
Not for a single moment, but I think that she had to have drawn from some sort of well that gave her that, and you could tell that from anything she's ever done, because whether it's Return to Halloween Town or, I'm going to make an admission here, I seen Aquamarine and I didn't hate it. All right. She was great in all those things. And I'm going to say great because those are definitely, I mean, they're not Hallmark movies, but they are, you know, because Disney Channel originals are basically that. And the fact that She can keep you watching. And I have to stop and ask myself, why did I finish watching this thing? Because I remember asking myself that while I was watching it. I'm like, why am I continuing to watch this? Because nothing that I will see will change what I'm going to say on this podcast. I could have very easily stopped watching when I first thought, you know what? I think this is a turd. And still given the same exact commentary that I'm giving right now.
And then just been surprised when I told you the ending.
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, that that did come out of nowhere. How do you explain that? And that's the thing. But I do think that even if it wasn't for Shiver and me feeling an obligation to myself and to you and to our audience, that like I need to actually watch this thing to comment on it. I probably would have continued watching this only because the performances were good. They were solid performances. And I felt like I owed it to Sarah Paxton. I felt like I owed it to Pat Healy because I don't think they phoned it in.
Yeah. And, you know, when you look at the third player here in Kelly McGinnis, it's almost criminal that we didn't get more of her. She could have been a bigger part of this film and could have served as that omniscient narrator role that this film desperately needed for where it was trying to go. If we could have tapped more into this idea that she could communicate instead of these really half-cocked times that we got her tapping into her spiritualness and trying to determine something, then this could have been something, because Kelly McGinnis was killing that role. She was doing great with it. You know, when she goes into her trance and she's got her pendulum out and she kind of goes into the whole there's three ghosts, don't go in the basement thing, when she explains how her weird deja vu, you know, kind of works, kind of doesn't work. Those were really good because, like you said, the dialogue in this, the words that people are speaking are very well written. And so she did she did a really good job with those. And what's funny is this movie is sandwiched in between two Jim Mickle movies that she did in Stakeland and We Are What We Are. And I haven't seen We Are What We Are, but Stakeland is a lot of fun to watch. And she's in that. And so, and then We Are What We Are, which, you know, great, based on what we said here, isn't necessarily reliable, but it has decent reviews. So it seems like she was, you know, she was headlong into this horror thing. And she was just kind of criminally underutilized in this because the amounts of her that we got from, you know, like the old lady who's tipping because she got a towel, to kind of shitting on this girl for not going anywhere in life, to becoming very matronly with supporting the fact that this girl had just had a paranormal experience. We got a lot of range from her in the little bit that we got. We deserved more of her.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement. She is the third major player here, and where we get a lot of Paxton and Healy, we don't get nearly as much of McGillis, and she is, by all accounts, she is the most versatile character here,
right?
And she is untapped, I think. It's a shame because she's also the most experienced actor in the bunch, and she is pretty great. Like, you know, she is, if you only know Kelly McGillis from Top Gun, like, go and watch some more of her stuff because she can act.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. She can. Go watch The Accused. Like I mean, she really can. She is something else. So there's the characters that we see the most. There are a couple more characters in this movie, kind of. So
no, exactly a couple. There's two,
but they're only kind of in the movie.
Kind of.
So this is, Year of the Monster, Month of the Ghost. So we need to take the time to go over the actual ghosts in this film and, kind of see what type of stance they took. So when you look at the ghost lore that's built here with the ghosts that we get, how do you feel that this stacks up?
It's awful. It's terrible. I
Thank
hate
you.
it. I do like the look of the ghosts, and I will say that. The bride, and I keep forgetting her fucking name.
Madeline.
Madeline. Could be Madeline, could be Jesselyn, could be Jocelyn, could be anything. And I'm not going to remember. You want to know why? Because she's not in the fucking movie.
Right.
She shows up twice. Fucking twice. And in the best scene with her, you don't get to fucking see her. All right?
Right.
I hated the ghosts in this movie. Because, like, you look at the poster for this thing, and it's like, if that ghost is the ghost in this fucking movie, wow, I'm in. Look at how creepy that fucking thing looks. And then you see it in the daytime, you're like, that fucking hotel looks like a hotel, man.
Yeah.
Like, my house looks scarier than that thing in the daytime. And I got a normal house.
Yeah.
So I absolutely hated it. I really, like, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the ghosts in this either, because I feel like doing that gives them power. It gives them power in your lives. It gives them power in my own life. And it's like the old man, Riss McSlitty or whatever the fuck I called him. Like, he was great. He was awesome. He's in the movie for the sum total of 45 seconds.
Yes.
And when he finally shows
and 30
up,
of that, he's not a ghost. He's just a corpse in a bathtub.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Look, I too hate the ghosts in this movie. Because what the hell? Like, what the actual fuck is the logic of the ghosts in this movie? Right?
I will pay someone to tell me what the logic is.
Thank you. I don't get it. Right? These are two ghosts that we experience in this movie. Two. And both of them committed suicide.
Mhm.
Neither one of them, at least we know for a fact, committed suicide just because he was old and depressed. What made these ghosts turn into malevolent, vengeful spirits?
Mhm.
That's if you're going to create a malevolent, vengeful entity, give me one goddamn reason why they're angry. Give me one reason why they are murdering people that are put in front of them.
Not
Just
people,
one
person.
Yes,
One person. This is the only person who has been murdered by these ghosts, and it happens to be on the last weekend that the hotel is open, and it happens to be this girl.
Right. Like, and she was so fucking nice to him. She took him up to the third floor, put sheets on the bed because that room wasn't being used, and he killed her. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. And yes, I am talking about ghosts and the fact that I want them to make sense, because it fucking should. Because that's cohesive storytelling.
Right.
That's how you make something that, and because you look at these ghosts, it's like, those look spectacular. And you look at the ghosts from The Fog last week, and it's like, those are kind of funny. But a week ago, we were like, these ghosts are fucking great.
Yeah.
Everything about them rules, because they were perfectly built into that world. These two ghosts make no goddamn sense. The Madeline was not trying to convey some sort of message to Claire about, her life, and she needed to get it on track or she was going to end up like her. The old guy just shows up naked and bloody and murders her, even though she's the one person who seems like it's been nice to him in a very long time. None of that makes sense. Even in a ghost story where a ghost kills a stranger, that ghost usually has a reason for being a violent spiritual entity. It was usually killed in some sort of horrible way, or something terrible happened to it that led to its death. It's vengeful. All of these things lead to spirits that set out to kill. These are two people who committed suicide. and we don't have any reason to believe that they did it because of some god awful thing that left them traumatized. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And you're right. I would absolutely pay somebody to make a cohesive argument as to why these ghosts make any sense, because there isn't one. Like, I am now officially the dude from Late Night with the Devil, right? I will buy a goddamn Publishers Clearinghouse check and write a number on it for you if at the end of your conversation I go, you know what, that does make sense, because there is no possibility that you can make this make sense without going into deep headcanon that probably I'm
Right.
still not going to buy into, because
No.
at some point you're going to have to rewrite everything that's kind of accepted knowledge of what ghosts are and or should be. And
That is the other point that I was going to make, is if you're going to fuck with a classic monster, you have to lay down the groundwork for it. All right. I mean, I've not often, but I have spoken about my disdain for one particular vampire series, where the sun doesn't kill him. Here's the thing, though. And I'm actually, you can mark the time and the date. I don't give a fuck.
Are you about to defend one Stephanie Meyer?
I am going to defend Stephanie Meyer, not her writing, because her writing is fucking atrocious. It is garbage. All right. But I will say this. She actually lays down, and I have read the books, so I can say this. I hate that I've read the books.
I read one of them.
She does actually give reasons for why they don't have fangs, and she gives reasons for why they don't typically go out in the sun, but why the sun doesn't kill them. Like, there is story. There's a canon. Right. There's a mythology that you can follow, and you're like, okay, I either accept it or I don't, but there are rules in place. If Warner Brothers suddenly decided to come out with a Superman movie where he can see through lead, hey, listen, you better fucking explain that shit.
Yeah.
Because the Superman mythology says he can't see through lead. Now, if he just starts firing lasers out of his eyes, you don't got to explain that shit. I get it. Why are these ghosts? Yeah. Why are these ghosts murderous? You have to explain that, because there is nothing in the history of ghost canon that says that these ghosts will kill Sarah Paxton. Nothing at all. When Guillermo del Toro used ghosts in a very different way, in a very literary way, in Crimson Peak, he explained it.
Yeah.
And he laid the groundwork for it. And it was stronger for it, because the ghost didn't represent the typical ghost that you see in horror. It was something else. And I was okay with it. I was fine with it. Go back and listen to that episode. You don't have to do the traditional thing for me to be like, that's what I want. I want fucking Bela Lugosi's Dracula. That's the only sort of vampire I'll take. No, that's not the only kind of vampire I'll take. The only kind of ghost I'll take is not that John Carpenter The Fog ghost, but make it make sense.
Right. We say all the time on this that if you're going to establish your own rules, then you have to play by them. Mm-hmm. The problem here is there were no new rules established, so we just have to assume that they were going to play by the universally accepted rules. Like, that's the thing, right? If you don't if I go out to play kickball with you and there is no discussion of rules beforehand, I'm going to assume that we're playing kickball the way that everybody usually plays it throughout time. Then if you start pulling out Calvin ball shit, now we've got a problem, because you should have told me about that beforehand. You can't just spring that on me halfway through. But if you told me we were playing Calvin ball at the beginning, I'm on board. That's the problem here. They never took the time to world build what these ghosts were or what ghosts are in this universe. So we are under the assumption that they're going to follow the rules of all of their ghosts. And when they don't, it just pisses you off instead of feeling innovative, which is maybe what they were after.
Yeah. So, question. If I tell you we're playing poker, what do you think we're doing?
If you just tell me we're playing poker, my assumption is we're playing Texas Hold'em.
Fantastic. If I tell you I need some batteries, what do you think I need?
Double A's.
Fantastic. That's all you need to fucking hear right here. Okay. I didn't tell the audience because there's no way to fucking tell them without you knowing. But in my mind, I was thinking, if he doesn't say Texas Hold'em, he's not a fucking American. All right. And if he doesn't say AA batteries, I don't know. He's fucking human. All right. That is it. There's generally accepted things where it's like, this is what we're talking about. We all know what we're fucking talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, there it is, right? So it's time that we get to the rating of this thing. Now, you may kind of see where this is going, but just a reminder for everybody out there, as we review a movie, even though we've talked about others, we've compared it to Ghosts Through Mythology from other movies. We've compared this to other Ty West films. When we actually rate the movie, we only look at the movie for what it is in and of itself. And so for that to happen, we create a unique rating system for every movie. And so for this particular time, Dave, out of a possible 5 cans of Schlitz malt liquor, what do you give the Innkeepers?
Well, look, there were 3 cans of Schlitz malt liquor in this thing, and I feel like that was 3 too many. We've never given a 0, and I'm not going to give one tonight. I have given a 1 before, but the thing is that I think there's still good filmmaking to be had here. There's decent cinematography. Decent. I don't think it's great. You can look at X, and that is great cinematography. I don't think the lighting is particularly good or flattering in here. I do think it's realistic, but I don't think it's particularly good. So, like, maybe as far as like almost documentary filmmaking, yeah, that works here. There's good writing. So this movie really is a mixed bag when you break it down, but it's mixed in the, like, you go to Taco Bell and you order just a bunch of shit and you say, who got this fucking burrito? And you just raise your hand and you're like, I guess it's me. I don't know. I'm going to fucking eat it anyway.
Right.
So it's not necessarily coming up on the right side of who cares. So I'm going to give it 2. I'm going to give it 2 cans of Schlitz malt liquor, and I feel bad because there's 3 in this movie. and I feel like that makes me a liar, but I also feel like that makes it closer to the truth.
Yeah, look, I'm right there with you. It's not a 1. It's not irredeemable.
Right.
There are things in here that are worth talking about. Unfortunately, they were so heavily weighed down that we spent all our time talking about those other things. I did mention at the top, the score for this thing is very cool.
Yeah.
I loved the score for this movie. The fact that you can tell that this was shot on film and that Ty West was meticulous about the shots made in this movie. Those types of things, yes, they're worth, they're worth a can in themselves. And the dialogue that we got was fun, and it was the only thing that really kept me from turning it off, aside from the slavish devotion that I have to finish things just in general. So I'm gonna give it 2 as well. No, it is bad. It is really bad. I'm not gonna say it's not. It is.
It is.
It's really bad, but it could have been worse if it had all just been like static camera angles and stilted dialogue. So there is, I can think of some things that if I removed them from the movie, it would get worse. So I can't bottom barrel it with a 1. So this is a 2 cans of Schlitz malt liquor for me.
And this is one of those rare instances, I think, because I think it happens more often where one of us is like, dude, this movie is not good. And the other one is like, no, man, like, look at this thing. Look at this other thing in this movie. And there was this. We don't agree often, I think, on the bad movies. We agree often on good movies.
Right.
But like what makes a movie bad, that's where there's often like some sort of like discussion on that. So I kind of, this might be the first time, except for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, but everyone agreed on that.
I was about to say, this is the second time we've done it, and it's the third time I've been on one like this, because when and you were there in spirit when we did Nicolas Cage's Wicker Man. That was a resounding 1.
Fuck that movie.
So
Fuck
yes,
that movie.
so this is the third time we've been on the same page about a bad movie. Normally, there's one of us who's a little bit higher, but yeah, this one, no.
There you have it. And I don't feel like we owe it to this movie to continue talking about it or about anything. So, so please make sure that even if you're Ty West, we do love Ty West.
We do.
Just
We're
not
very
this
excited
movie.
for Maxine. We're super
Extremely
excited.
Extremely excited. So please, Ty West, don't take it personally. I didn't take it personally that you stole my time. So
I just imagine that like there's like through some bizarre series of like circumstances he's gonna hear this and we're gonna like run into him in October at Spooky's like those fucking guys.
Those guys with their tiny following and their super sarcastic comments. So yeah, it's just it is what it is, man.
Right. So make sure you head to shiverpod.com where you can find links.
Going.
There we go. Where you can find links to all of our social media outlets. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Instagram is where we are the most active. So if you have a suggestion for an episode, if you want to come on and talk about something, we are lining up 2 more ghost movies. Next week is kind of up in the air. But we know for a fact we are going to finish strong at the end of this month with the ghost movie that everybody's waiting for us to do since we're doing ghost movies. You can figure it out from there. Drop us a line. Let us know what you think. Also, still got a stack of stickers sitting right here next to my computer. You want to advertise for us somewhere out there in the world? Drop us your address in a DM and I'll toss one in an envelope.
Absolutely. So, on behalf of all of us here at Shiver, fright you very much.